And you're right, Matt LaFleur is going to use him like, I don't know, 100 different ways in this offense. We might even see him get to throw a pass this year for all we know. And then I'm looking forward to, how guys like Jaden Reed and Tay Wicks are going to eat off the back end of that, just having a dynamic guy like Williams out there. But I think you're right, man. DK is that straight line vertical dude. I think Savion Williams is more of a versatile threat for sure.
Yeah, and he just hearing his attitude too. And then Ryan played a clip on his podcast where he's talking about a medical issue that his newborn baby girl went through. And he kept mentioning his wife, his wife and his child's what he did. It's like he's way, way more mature than people his age. He's just one of those dudes. You could tell he's kind of an old soul, and he's a no BS guy. Like they asked him about the playbook. What do you remember about this play? I don't remember that play. Like that's just where they get me the ball and I score. Like he's just very. I don't want to say nonchalant. He's very blunt.
Right.
And
which is refreshing because everyone nowadays seems to want to spin narrative or sugarcoat or BS. It's like it's nice to see a guy just calling it like it is,
Yeah, and they try to butter you up, right?
Yep.
And he seems straightforward. But anyway, let's dive into a little bit of the scouting report here. Okay, this is a versatile weapon for the future. It just talks about them adding him here, selecting TCU wide receiver Savion Williams with the 87th overall pick in the 3rd round. Following their 1st round selection of Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden, 2nd round pick of a top 30 visit with NC State offensive tackle Anthony Belton. The Packers are clearly focused on injecting youth and versatility into their offense. Williams, a 6'3", 222-pound dynamo, brings a rare combination of size, speed, and multifaceted skills that could make him a cornerstone of Matt LaFleur's evolving offensive scheme. So here he was in high school, right? A standout from Marshall High School in Texas. Savion Williams was a 3-star recruit in the 2020 class, ranked as the 573rd national prospect by On3 with an 87.21 grade at 6'3", 200 pounds. He starred as a dual-threat quarterback, all right, showcasing elite athleticism with a 4.5 second 40-yard dash and a knack for extending plays. His senior tape highlighted his arm talent and explosive running ability, earning him all-district honors. Williams drew offers from Power 5 programs like Texas, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Missouri, ultimately choosing the TCU Horned Frogs, where he transitioned to a wide receiver with the potential to become a matchup nightmare at the next level. So you see in PFF grades, didn't get a whole lot of playing time in 20 and 21, but in 22, 58.9. And in 23, he kind of blows up, 72.4, and then he got even better in 24 to a 78.9 grade. And again, we want to point out the running grade. We kind of hit on this the other day with a 90.5 running grade and a 70.2 receiving grade. And again, the slots out wide, 345 snaps. In the slot, 95 times. He was in the backfield 38 times. He actually played quarterback 46 snaps last year with 7 kick return snaps and then 19 on kick coverage as well. We've kind of hit on some of this, so we won't go too in depth, but there you see the actual measurement. I think I'm the only one reporting that he's only 6'3" as opposed to 6'4", although it is, 6'3" and a little over a half. So maybe they round up. I don't know. But that scored him a 9.44 at RAS, with an elite composite size grade, obviously with 222 pounds. Ran a 4.48 40 with a 2.54 20-yard split and a 10-yard split of 1.53. So what you're noticing, that 20-yard split, in between 10 and 20 is where he's probably got the most burst. It's like he's kind of got that second gear there. But the top-end speed graded out similar to the 10-yard split there. Injury and character concerns, it says he was durable, playing in 37 games over his final 3 seasons at TCU with no major injuries reported. A minor hamstring tweak in 2023 didn't cost him playing time, and his 2024 season was a model of consistency, starting all 13 games. Off the field, Williams is a high-character leader driven by his daughter, Legacy. What a name, by the way, Legacy, who overcame significant health challenges as a premature infant. Described as a selfless teammate and tireless worker, he brings a competitive edge with 0 off-field red flags, making him a cultural fit for Green Bay's tight-knit locker room. So we talked about his draft projection. He was a number 87 overall pick. He was a day 2 projection, so somewhere in that range pretty much fits it. You move on to what Dane Brugler had to say about him. A 3-year starter at TCU, Williams transitioned to a hybrid receiver role in the Frog package as a super senior and offensive coordinator. Kendall Briles' up-tempo spread attack. He splits his 2024 snaps between wide receiver exclusively to the left of the formation. I did notice that. You're going to see when we do Chalk Talk, he lines up in the X, he lines up in the Z, but most of the time it was actually on the left side of the formation. And when he was on the right side of the formation, he would motion left. So whether it was a pop pass, touch pass, whatever you want to call it, or they done a cheat motion will with him out the left side. So it does seem to be one of those guys that he likes to catch the ball over his right shoulder. If that makes sense. And again, you got to be able to catch over both shoulders to play in the league. So I don't think they have any problems with that. Let's see here. Up-tempo spread. He split his 2024 snaps between wide receiver exclusively left the formation. In the backfield, 84 snaps as either a running back or a wildcat quarterback with just 23 targets of more than 10 yards, resulting in 9 catches. He was basically an extension of the run game on screens and slants. He also averaged 8 carries per game over the final 6 contests of 2024. A big, physically imposing athlete, Williams has some freaky traits that will tease playmaking flashes. Very fitting that he grew up idolizing Calvin Johnson. He can play above the rim and has a knack for pulling in contested catches, but he needs to show better confidence in his hands and improve the details of his routes. Overall, TCU leaned into Williams' unique athletic profile in 24, and the manufactured touches showcase his ability to create with the ball. However, the move came out of necessity because of Williams' inconsistencies as a traditional receiver. He projects as more of a joker weapon and needs a creative play caller who can utilize him in different ways, similar to Cordero Patterson. Again, they had a 3rd to 4th round grade on him. We took him in the 3rd grade, so Dane Brugler nailed it there. Strengths, looks like Adonis with his large cut-up frame and long arms. Moves with short area quickness and body control of a much smaller athlete. He made the Freaks list alum because of his explosiveness and power, would be favored to win a 2025 NFL Draft Prospect Slam Dunk contest. Physical to the football, especially on fades, and consistently high points in traffic. Bursts and play strength were on display as a Wildcat quarterback with 46 snaps in 24. Runs with urgency combined for 40 forced missed tackles on 111 offensive touches his senior season. So he got the ball 111 times and forced 40 missed tackles. That's wild. Completed all 3 pass attempts in 2024. Scouts say he had the strongest arm on the TCU roster. He played quarterback in high school. Wore the captain's C on his jersey. Receiving production improved each season at TCU. So you're seeing what Greg Cosell calls an ascending player, right? We're not going to go too deep into the background here. You guys can go check it out. Again, this is on our Patreon group. Scan the QR code in the upper right. We'll go to patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. You'll get access to all of this on there for $3 a month. Greg Cosell says, elite traits profile with unique mix of size and speed and explosiveness, powerful frame and physical presence, multi-dimensional offensive weapon with deployment on jet sweeps and orbit reverses, and wildcat quarterback runs, straight line, fast and powerful as a runner with a strong physical presence, freight train feel to his running. How about that, Tim? Freight train feel to his running. A tough cover on slant and glance routes with his size and hands, defeated press without any route disruption. There were snapshots where he showed an understanding of route running and how to set up defensive backs. There's actually one on the Chalk Talk. We probably won't do it tonight. We'll do it another night. But where he does a little jab, it's like a jab and go, where you just a little jab step out and hit a skinny post. Whew. I mean, and it was a bad throw too. It ends up being on his backside. So not only does he just absolutely cook the corner or the safety, whichever DB it was, he cooks him, comes back inside, and the ball's thrown on the wrong shoulder. And he literally completely torques his body and catches the ball as he goes to the ground for the touchdown. So you definitely see that all over the tape. When it talks about showed body control and hands to go up and high point the ball, the ability to make tough contested catches, has the speed and stride length to be a vertical dimension. Routes where ran by and got on top of corners, run after catch weapon with his imposing size and speed and competitiveness, strong and deceptively shifty. So there you go. He's got another transition paragraph there you guys can kind of check out too. So he sounds like more than just a gadget guy, Tim. It really does, man.
Yeah, I agree. It's versatility, right? And it's kind of tough because it's kind of like a thin line, right, between being a gadget guy and being just a really versatile wide receiver in this league. And I think we'll see the full gamut of him in this LaFleur offense once he, gets up to speed with the playbook and things like that. But the thing I like about him is the fact that I know we grabbed a UDFA running back, I believe, but much to Excelio's dismay, we did not draft a running back this year. But Savion Williams, man, he adds some depth to that running back room in a pinch as well, behind Jacobs, behind Emmanuel Wilson, Marshawn Lloyd, guys that are, on the rise themselves. If we ever had a setback in the running back room, I would look for Matt LaFleur to tool that playbook and tweak it and involve Savion Williams in the run game and, use that explosiveness and that, dynamic versatility that he has. So there's a lot to look forward to with this guy. I cannot wait to see him on the field.
Definitely. Greg Rice says that touchdown thrown behind him where he twists and makes a crazy catch makes me think his hands would be awesome. I wonder what the disconnect is. I'll tell you what I think it is, Greg, me personally, and I could be wrong. I think Ryan might have mentioned this too. Not having the time to develop as a receiver. Mm-hmm. You got to understand, like when they're running these plays with him as the Wildcat quarterback and him on a jet sweep, like one play, they ran an outside zone. Imagine this: shotgun, sidecar right, outside zone left. The entire offensive line moves to the left. He comes off of that. They hand the ball to the running back, and it looks like a zone read. The running back pitches it to him, so now it's a reverse, right?
Right.
And then he loads up and throws a pass to the receiver on the opposite side. So it takes time to practice that stuff. It takes time to practice playing quarterback, playing Wildcat, running the reverses, not to mention the RPO offense and everything that they ran down there and mixed in. With that being said, he hasn't had time to develop as a wide receiver. They basically said, how can we get the ball in this guy's hands, as opposed to, hey, look, we want you to truly understand the choice route aspect of, when we're in dub sets or we're in a tray set or we're in a trip set. We want you to be able to read the safety, read the corner. If they do this, we'll do that. And it already mentioned their quarterback didn't even have the strongest arm on the team. That was Savion Williams. So you were kind of limited in that regard, Greg. So I agree with you, man. That crazy catch he made, Tim, falling to the ground and having to adjust to the ball, shows me the hands are there. I think he's going to get up there with Jason Brable and actually get worked into rotation and kind of hone those skills as a receiver. Not that you won't use them on a jet sweep, you'll still do that, but yeah.
I agree. And that's why I don't put I put about as much stock as I should into drop rate when it comes to receivers, because that can get tricky, right? You talk about a guy contorting, adjusting to a bad ball. What about the ones he doesn't come down with, and it's like, oh, he's getting credited for a drop. It hit him in the hand, but it was a crap ball from your quarterback. Right. So it's kind of a deceiving stat, the drops that we all hate are the ones that are blatantly obvious, right? You come out of the break, it hits you right in the chest and you can't catch the ball. That's on the receiver. But I think a lot of times receivers kind of, they get dragged over the coals for drops. And, most of those are probably not necessarily 100% just a hands issue. It could be a multitude of reasons why they have a higher drop rate. So I'm not too worried about it, but I can't wait to see him. Hopefully not throwing too many passes, hopefully catching more in Green Bay. But we all know Tupac LaFleur, man. He's not going to hesitate to pull out the old razzle dazzle there. Probably right after the opening kick, right? First and 10 from your 25, and we're gonna try a double reverse and receiver option or something right out of the gate. So it'll be fun to watch, man.
Yeah. Daryl in the chat said, I see Williams as an outside X receiver / versatile receiver. I was really impressed with the tape watching it earlier. He can play X. And I think that, someone who, here's the other thing, being a quarterback coming out of high school, I'm telling you, that stuff matters. And at college level, like Julian Edelman became a borderline Hall of Fame receiver in New England, right? One of the most successful Super Bowl receivers in the history of the game since the merger. What made him so great? It wasn't that he was crazy fast. He had a good twitch, don't get me wrong. The thing that separated him amongst anything else is being on the same page with Tom Brady, but also understanding what it's like to play quarterback. I think he played at Kent State and he was the quarterback. So when you're playing receiver through the mindset of a quarterback, you see the coverage totally different. You understand what the quarterback's trying to get you to do in reading leverage and finding the open spot, all those things.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's going to kind of play into his route running ability and why I think he could play X receiver. I really do. So Coach Lynn here says, I think he has concentration drops. He's trying to make a move before he catches it. And Coach, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that can be coached out of him. You know,
I do too.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing that a guy is automatically thinking, I want to take this one to the house. You know,
especially on those in breakers, right? Running a slant over the middle, you're probably 9 out of 10 times worried about that DB or that linebacker coming across and popping you. So sometimes guys tend to not look it all the way in because they turn and get their eyes upfield a little too soon. I think that's what Coach Lynn's talking about. And I agree 100%, Clay. You can coach that out. That'll take 2 to 3 weeks, you know, work the drills, get some live game reps, get some preseason reps, and, you know, just work it out of the game.
Yeah, Coach Lynn says his first 3 years, though, he was playing a bunch on the perimeter, but I agree he has not perfected his craft. I think, again, you're getting a player that's ascending as he comes into the league and someone who – and that's the other thing. Like all these players, you know, Mike McCarthy used to say it all the time, there are no bad football players in the league. They're good football players and they're great football players.
Yep.
And sometimes the difference between great football players and good football players is the opportunity they're given, the situation they're put in. It's also the coaches that they're surrounded by. Like you got to make sure you got coaches in the building that's going to get the best out of them and help them take that next step and you know, to kind of achieve that what am I trying to say to that potential, right? And that's something that happens in college a lot too. You know, these guys will get caught up in certain offenses or certain defense in that aspect as well. Where it's just, no, just shut up and do what I need you to do. We're trying to win a national title, as opposed to this is what's going to help you at the next level. And that's not a shot at a college coach. That's what they're getting paid to do, win national championships, not get guys ready for the league, you know? So it's just when you find these guys that that potential hasn't been tapped into, now it's up to your coaches. It's up to your guys to put them in a position to win. And I think Coach LaFleur will do everything he can to put them in a position to win too. Judy says, the good news about the draft being over is no matter what I thought of the prospects, I can root for them now. Amen to that.
Let's go.
Amen to that, man. And I just love the fact that like can all kind of come together, at least on this particular show, and be like, okay, we don't know everything, right? We gave you guys our board all year long. We walked you through the entire process of us building our board. Here's where we got them ranked. But once the draft choice is made, I'm checking my ego at the door and going, okay, Goody had a 2nd round grade on Anthony Belton as opposed to us having a 3rd or a 4th round grade. Dane Brugler had a 3rd or a 4th round grade on him as well. What did he see in Anthony Belton to go, I want him in the 2nd round? And for anyone who goes, well, that doesn't mean he's going to be good. I agree, completely agree. Mm-hmm. However, if you go off precedent, who was the last offensive lineman we selected in the 2nd round, right? It's Josh Myers, center. That's not a good look. Before that, who was it? Elton Jenkins, right? So if you're going to hold Josh Myers over Goody's head as being a 2nd round offensive lineman selection that didn't pan out, you got to give him credit for Elton Jenkins, who's been one of the best pros. Now, here lately, he's not been quite as good as he was when he first came in the league. When we seen him slapping Aaron Donald around, that was absolutely awesome. But look at the other 2nd round picks he's made. You know, Edgerrin Cooper last year, that was a solid pick, right? So you got to kind of take everything into consideration. And the other thing is get those guys on the field too. You know, I think Anthony Belton's going to have an opportunity to get on the field. And that all of a sudden, Tim, that offensive line room has gotten really crowded. I love it, dude. I love it.
Yeah, that's a good thing, right? Healthy competition. I agree. And then we all know Goody cooks after the 3rd round, right? I mean, let's be real. Look at we just got done talking about Savon Williams, right? That was a guy that correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Goody had mentioned that we weren't necessarily going to take 2 receivers. We knew we were getting Matthew Golden in the 1st round based on how the board fell. But when we got to round 3 and Savion Williams was on the board, it was like, whoa, adjust everything we're thinking here. This guy's available, draft him, and let's go. And it's a great example of, proper gamesmanship by your general manager when he's willing to look at his board. You know, that's what you put all the time and effort and energy into, right? I mean, we were at the Hall of Fame. We saw the board from, what was that, 2022 or something?
Probably my favorite thing about the whole trip.
Yeah. And it's like, think of how much work from how many people go into building a draft board like that. And you have to be, if you're the GM on draft day, you have to be able to make that decision and say, hey, we didn't want 2 receivers necessarily in this draft, but we don't draft for position. We draft for best available, and we trust our board. And our board said Savon Williams was the best dude available with the 3rd round pick, and that's why he's a Packer right now. And I think history is going to prove us right in that respect. I think the Packers did a good job by making that pick for sure.
Definitely. Coach Lynn says, hopefully Wicks, Reed, Watson, Dobbs, Williams are all on the jugs machine after practice. That's the other thing is like, you remember when we drafted Jordan Love, how Aaron Rodgers all of a sudden won 2, back-to-back MVPs?
Mm-hmm.
Drafting these 2 receivers is going to light a fire under everybody, man.
Oh, yeah.
The competition is going to be – Tim, I'm so envious of you. You're going to be over at training camp seeing it firsthand, man.
Yep.
And these guys are going to be – I mean, they're going to be clawing for roster – not just roster spots, but like who's going to get the most snaps, who's going to get that guy in the top rotation. You know what I mean?
That's such a great point because a lot of people, they lose that in the mix. Camp is about getting your opportunities. It really hurt, watching Edge Coop last year being banged up at training camp and seeing him standing on the sideline talking to Quay Walker during camp because he couldn't go. Sometimes you get cheated out of those early experiences. But I think looking at this receiver room, man, I look at Malik Heath and Bo Melton, some of these guys towards the bottom tiers, man, that is going to be a hell of a battle. Just watching them going out every day, trying to win those reps, because one good play on Tuesday could mean the difference between you getting 2 or 3 more, reps on Wednesday during training camp, if that makes sense. So I'm looking forward to this just kind of picking up the whole receiver room with the competition that we have now. I would not want to be Matt LaFleur on cut day. I tell you that. It's going to be tough to make those decisions.
Yep. Steve, somebody asked, Deadfish says, hope you got a picture of that board. We'll talk about that here in a second. Let me go ahead and wrap up this article because we're already over on time. We're going hour 20 tonight. Mandy's going to be bad. Maybe be all right. Outlook for 2025. Williams is unlikely to start as a rookie, but could carve out a niche in sub packages, leveraging his versatility to earn 20 to 30 snaps per game. I think that's a little high. When I asked the AI there how many snaps you think he'll get, that's what they came up with. I think it'd be closer to 10, probably 10 to 15 would be my guess, unless he just dominates in training camp and earns more, right? His special teams potential as a returner or gunner adds another path to playing time under the guidance of receivers coach Jason Vrabel. Williams will focus on sharpening his route tree and improving his hands to unlock his full potential. If he adapts quickly, he could push for a larger role by midseason, especially if injuries strike the receiver core. The Packer fans should be excited about Williams' rare athletic gifts and relentless drive. As general manager Brian Gutekunst noted, quote, "We're building an offense that can score with anyone," end of quote. With Williams' ability to impact games as a receiver, runner, and potential trick play threat, he's a high upside addition to a team with Super Bowl aspirations. Keep an eye on his progress during training camp, where his battles with Green Bay's talented secondary will test his readiness for the NFL stage. I can't wait to see him go up, Tim, for a jump ball on Xavier McKinney. That's what I'm looking forward to. So,
oh man, for sure. Or Evan Williams, or hopefully Jair Alexander. That'll be fun. That's one thing for sure. If Ja's out there at camp running around with these young receivers, man, he's going to give them everything that he's got for sure. And then some probably high effort and high trash talking to welcome these guys to the NFL. So it'll be fun though, for sure. Yeah. And it's like Emilio always says, man, iron sharpens iron, right? Mm-hmm. We got a good secondary. We're cooking with that secondary. We're 1 year removed from, a safety room that was a dumpster fire. And we corrected that in one off season last year. And now we're going into year 2 with X and, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams. Like the back end of that D looks really good. And then, some of these corners that we're putting into play here, I fully expect them to, pick up that receiver room just off the practices and the camp reps alone,